Hi everyone, Miss Phelps here. Today I'm going to teach you about the engineering design process. That means it's time for us to think like engineers. But first, what is an engineer? An engineer is someone who designs and builds things to solve problems. You can see the girl in this picture just like you. She must have had a problem she needed to solve, and she gathered some materials and made a design just like good engineers do. Now I'm going to tell you about the steps of the engineering design process. Step 1 is to ask, what's the problem? Now, I stopped to think about this and I asked myself, what is a problem I have that I need to come up with a solution for? My problem is that I'm really hot. Summer is coming and it's getting hot outside and I don't have an air conditioner or a fan or anything to cool me off. I'm so sweaty and I need a solution to my problem. So let's move on to step 2. Step 2 is to imagine and do some research. So I'm going to ask myself, how can I solve the problem? Well, after doing some research, I learned that when people are hot, they might cool off their apartment or their home by using an air conditioner or a fan. And like I said, I don't have either of those things. So I was trying to think of other things I knew about fans. And I remembered that I once learned about people in Japan and China using paper fans to cool themselves off, just like you can see here. So I thought maybe I could create something like that to solve my problem. Now, let's move on to step 3. In step 3, that's when you make a plan. So I asked myself, what will this look like and what materials will I need? And I knew that the fans in Japan and China were very fancy looking. They have pretty patterns and they're held together by wood. And I don't need anything that fancy. I decided the materials I'm going to use are just paper and staples. And it would be pretty simple. I would just fold the paper up like an accordion and hold it together with staples. So I have my plan. Now let's move on to step 4. Step 4 is to create. So you have to draw your idea and then you have to make a model of it. So as you can see in this picture, I drew what I thought my fan would look like. And then I just went to my recycling bin and I found a piece of paper and I folded it into an accordion style fan and I held it together with a staple. Now this is my model. I created my plan and then I actually made it. And here's what it looks like. Now we can move on to step 5. In step 5, it's time to test and improve. So first, does this work the way I wanted it to? Well, yeah, it cools me off, but how can I make my design better? I wonder if having a bigger fan would cool me off even more. So maybe if I used a bigger piece of paper, that would make the design even better. I'm going to go back to step 3 in the engineering design process. And I'm going to make a new plan. Now, that means I'm still going to use the same materials, but my paper is going to be bigger. So I need paper, I need staples, and it's going to look similar to my first fan, but it'll have a bigger design that hopefully will cool me off even more. Now we can move on to step 4, create and make a model. So I don't need to redraw my idea because it's actually going to look the same. I just decided to use a bigger piece of paper. And I actually took that piece of paper that I had drawn my model on and I folded it just like this and I stapled it together. So here's my first design and here's my new design. Now we can move on to step 5. In step 5, we test and improve. So it's time to test it. Let's see. Oh yeah, this bigger fan cools me off so much better. So I have made my design even better. I just thought like a good engineer. I asked myself, how can I make this design and this model better? And I used a bigger piece of paper to do so. So now we can move on to the final step in the engineering design process, step 6, which is to share your results. So now I can present my results to you and tell you how I solved my problem. So first, I decided, okay, my problem is that I'm way too hot. And then I thought about how I could solve it. I knew that I didn't have a fan or an air conditioner, but I thought about how I know people use paper fans sometimes. And then I made a plan to create my own paper fan using paper and staples. So I created my first fan, I tested it, and then I improved it by using bigger paper to make my design even better. So my first fan looked like this, and my next fan looked like this, and this is my final design. This fan works great, and it can keep me cool on a really hot day. So now we're on the final step, which is sharing our results. And that is the engineering design process. First, you ask. Second, you imagine and research. Third, you make a plan. Fourth, you create. Fifth, you test and improve. And last but not least, number 6 is to share. And you might have noticed that sometimes engineers have to go back a few steps and try again before they get to their final product. And that's exactly what I did. I thought of how I could make my design better. And that is exactly what good engineers do. Now, those are the steps of the engineering design process. I am going to now tell you about your assignment for this week. For this week's science assignment, you're going to watch a video of a young engineer designing a smartphone projector. And after you watch the video, I want you to explain to me how he used the engineering design process. You can find that assignment under the classwork section right where you found this video. I can't wait to see your work, and I hope you have a great week.